Hi everyone. The fog lay heavy over the riverbank, thick enough to blur the edges of the world. The sun had not yet risen, yet the city of Varanasi was awake, not with the usual gentle bell chimes or soft prayer chants, but with footsteps, many footsteps, quiet, heavy, deliberate. People moved in long, slow lines toward the Ganges. No one spoke, no one dared to. Their breaths mixed with the cold air, forming white clouds that vanished almost instantly, as if the morning itself refused to hold anything unnecessary. The river, usually shimmering with golden reflections and the fragrance of incense, looked darker than usual, still, watching. In their hands, the crowd carried statues, stone, brass, wood. Gods they had adored, dressed, celebrated, and feared. The weight of each idol seemed heavier than it had ever been in their lives. Heavy not because of stone, but because of everything that stone represented. Doubt, hope, fear. A lifetime of questions no one had dared to speak aloud. Leading them was an old man with silver hair and trembling fingers, Pandit Govind Sharma, a name once spoken with respect and certainty, the man who taught families how to pray, who led rituals, who blessed newborns. His authority had been absolute. Yet this morning, he walked not as a leader. He walked as someone standing on the edge of a cliff. His eyes were swollen, as if from many nights without sleep. His steps were steady, but there was a storm behind them. The kind of storm that forms only after a long, silent war inside a person. The crowd followed him, but they did not understand him. They only felt something. Something in the air that was impossible to ignore, something like a heartbeat beneath the ground, a pull toward the river, a pull toward truth or madness or destiny. The river mist parted slowly, like a curtain being drawn back, revealing the dark water below. The sky remained silent, offering no sign, no approval, no warning. This was not a ritual. This was a moment suspended at the edge of everything they had ever believed. Pandit Govind stopped at the water's edge. His breath trembled once, then steadied. Behind him, thousands waited. No one dared to break the silence. The world held its breath. This morning was not ordinary. This morning was the beginning of something that would shake every heart that witnessed it. Something irreversible, something that no one could stop now. The river whispered softly, as though aware of the thousands of eyes staring into it. The cold air stung their faces, but no one moved. No one asked questions, not yet. Pandit Govind stood still for a long moment. Then he turned. His face was pale, but his eyes were alive, burning with something the crowd had never seen in him before. Not authority, not pride. Truth. A truth that cost him sleep, tears, and the last remnants of certainty. He raised the statue in his hands. The God he had worshipped his entire life looked back at him with carved, unmoving eyes. Eyes that never saw him, never heard him, never answered him. For decades he had convinced others that the gods watched, that they listened, that every offering mattered. But he knew the truth now. He had learned it in the quiet hours of the night, when he was alone, when there was no one to impress and no rituals to perform, when his questions finally refused to be silenced. The truth did not come to him gently. It came like a knife. He had heard the Quran for the first time by accident, a young boy in the market reciting softly as he worked. No stage, no sermon, no grand invitation. But every word felt alive, alive in a way no statue had ever been.
For nights afterward, Govind had felt something tearing inside him. A tearing so painful he could barely breathe. A tearing between everything he had taught and everything he could no longer deny. Now the crowd stared at him, waiting. Some feared him, some trusted him, but all of them needed to hear something, anything, a reason for this impossible mourning. Govind's voice, when it came, was quiet. I have been blind for many years. The words fell like a stone into still water. The crowd rippled. I led you through rituals I no longer understood. I taught you faith I no longer felt. I told you to look toward gods who never spoke, while the one who should be worshipped was never acknowledged. A woman in the crowd clapped her hand over her mouth. A man stepped back in shock. A child clung to his mother's shawl. A single question hung in the air, heavy as thunder. Then who? Govind looked down at the idol in his hands. I searched for truth, he whispered, and I found it in the words of the one God, the God who does not sleep, the God who does not hunger, the God who does not live in stone. The wind shifted, the river stirred, the crowd leaned in. Govind lifted the statue one last time, his voice steady and clear. We have worshipped silence, but I have heard the truth. His fingers loosened, the statue slipped, and gravity claimed it. It hit the water with a heavy splash, deafening in the frozen silence. The ripples traveled outward, as if carrying the truth with them. Thousands watched the waves break. Thousands felt something inside them break too. And in that moment, just a moment, the world seemed to stop breathing, because what had just begun could no longer be undone. The statue disappeared beneath the surface, swallowed by the dark water. The ripples spread, slow at first, then wider, reaching the feet of the crowd. The waves seemed to carry a message, though no one could yet name it. Silence held the riverbank hostage. No one moved, no one breathed. Every face reflected the same realization. Something irreversible had happened, something sacred, something dangerous. A young man near the front, no older than 20, stared at the water. His name was Arjun. For years he had felt an ache inside him that he could not describe, a restlessness, a longing. He had knelt before statues, lit incense, whispered prayers into the air. Nothing had ever answered him. Yet when that statue sank, something inside him cracked open. His throat tightened. His heart pounded so hard it hurt. He did not think. He did not plan. The sound rose from somewhere deeper than his own voice. Allahu Akbar.
It came out raw, almost a gasp. The crowd turned toward him. His hands shook, his chest heaved, tears formed in his eyes without permission. He whispered again, louder, Allahu Akbar. This time the sound did not fall alone. Another voice joined him, trembling, then another. The voices spread like sparks catching dry grass. Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! The words rose into the sky, climbing higher than smoke, higher than prayer bells, higher than doubt. They were not shouted with anger. They were released like a truth finally allowed to breathe. Pandit Govind closed his eyes. His lips trembled, but not from fear. He whispered the words too. Allahu Akbar. His voice was steady. The river wind blew harder, lifting the edges of shawls and robes. Birds startled from the trees and rose into the sky. The chant grew, louder, stronger, sharper. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulallah. Some fell to their knees. Some held their faces in their hands. Others simply stood, stunned, as if watching their lives break apart and rebuild at the same time. There were tears. There were shaking shoulders. There were hearts beating fast enough to bruise ribs. Yet no one turned to run. No one protested. The truth did not arrive like a storm. It arrived like a sunrise. Slow, unstoppable, absolute. The river did not move faster, but it felt different now, as if it recognized them, as if it had been waiting. This was not conversion. This was return. The echo of the declaration still hung in the air. The riverbank felt different now, as if it had crossed from the world of the ordinary into something sacred. Pandit Govind looked at Arjun, at the young man whose voice had shattered the silence. Arjun's chest rose and fell rapidly, as though every breath cost him something. His hands were clenched at his sides, knuckles pale. Their eyes met. Govind saw what lived inside that young man's gaze. Recognition, surrender, truth. Not the truth spoken by teachers or carved into temple walls, the kind of truth that rises from the deepest part of a person, the truth that does not need permission. The crowd watched the two of them, watching for judgment, watching for approval, watching for a sign of what should happen now. Govind inhaled slowly. The breath steadied him. He stepped closer to the edge of the river. The cold water touched his feet. The waves curled around his ankles like a quiet welcome. His voice, when he spoke, was no longer heavy. I bear witness. The words were soft.
Yet every person heard them. There is no God worthy of worship except Allah. The river wind carried his voice across the water, and Muhammad is his messenger. It happened again. Silence. Not shock, not confusion. A silence like the pause before tears. A woman covered her mouth and sobbed. A father tightened his arms around his son. The old, the young, the weary, the wounded, all felt something swell inside them, a rising tide of meaning too large to hold. Arjun moved to the water's edge. His steps were unsure, but his heart was not. He repeated the words. His voice cracked midway, but he did not stop. His tears fell freely, warm against the cold air. Others followed, one by one at first, then in groups, then in waves. A chorus of trembling voices filled the riverbank. There were no drums, no priests, no banners, no celebration, only a return. Only hearts recognizing the one who had always been there. Some cried openly. Some whispered the words like fragile glass. Some stood silently, with tears sliding down their faces, unable to speak, but unable to deny what was happening inside them. Govind felt his knees weaken, not from age, from relief. The kind of relief that comes when a weight carried for a lifetime finally falls away. For the first time in many years, his heart felt free. The river flowed on, calm, ancient, a witness to the moment. The sun had not yet risen, but the light had already arrived. The chants faded slowly, leaving behind a trembling quiet, the kind of quiet that follows a storm,
when the world is unsure what it has become. Not everyone had stepped forward. Some still stood at a distance. Their hands tightened around the statues in their arms. Their breaths came uneven. Their eyes shook with doubt. Among them was Asha, a middle-aged woman wrapped in a faded red shawl. She held a stone idol close to her chest, its cold surface pressed against her heartbeat. Her lips trembled, but no sound came out. Her daughter, a small girl with wide, searching eyes, tugged at her sleeve. "Mother," she whispered, "are we doing something wrong or something right?" The question pierced deeper than any accusation. Asha looked at the river, at the faces crying in relief, at the young boy who had spoken the words first, at the old priest who had admitted what no teacher ever dared to say. Her heart was no stranger to doubt. She had prayed for years, prayed for health, prayed for peace, prayed for the nightmares to stop. Yet her prayers had always felt like words thrown into an empty sky. Her voice finally cracked out of her. "I do not want to betray the gods of my ancestors." The words tasted like iron. Govind heard her. He stepped toward her slowly, careful not to break the fragile space between them.
"You are not betraying your past," he said quietly. "You are honoring the part of you that has always searched for what is true." Asha looked down at the idol. The carved face stared back, perfect but lifeless. Eyes that had never seen her tears, hands that had never touched her suffering. Her grip weakened. She remembered the nights she cried alone, the days she begged the heavens for help that never came, the ache of praying into silence. Gobind spoke again. "Your ancestors searched for truth just as you do now. They walked paths they believed were right. You are doing the same. But truth does not belong to stone. Truth belongs to the one who created stone." Asha's breath broke. Her daughter reached up and touched her cheek, not with fear, with hope. The river moved gently, as if calling her. She closed her eyes. Her hands loosened. The idol slipped. It fell into the water with a soft splash, vanishing beneath the surface like a memory finally released. Asha inhaled sharply, as if air had returned to her lungs for the first time in years. Her daughter took her hand. They stepped forward together. The river welcomed them. Asha's voice trembled, but she spoke. "I bear witness, there is no God but Allah. Muhammad is his messenger." The words broke her. They rebuilt her. They softened her. They strengthened her. A ripple of emotion passed through the crowd. The last wall in her heart had fallen. Others saw her and understood. Some walls inside them began to crack too. The sun touched the horizon, casting a thin line of gold across the water. A new day was coming, a day that would not forget what happened here, a day that could not be undone. The first touch of sunlight broke across the surface of the Ganges, turning the water into a sheet of shimmering gold. The chill of dawn began to lift, replaced by a quiet warmth that settled over the riverbank. No one spoke at first. The voices that had filled the morning were gone now. The chants had faded. The confessions had been made. What remained was something deeper than sound. It was peace. Some people fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the weight that had finally lifted. Others sat quietly, letting the breeze dry their tears. Children watched their parents with wide, calm eyes, sensing something too sacred for language. Arjun stood near the water,
his hands shaking lightly, not from fear anymore, from release. He felt as if his chest had finally opened, allowing him to breathe in a way that felt real. His tears had stopped, but the remnants of them still shone on his cheeks like morning dew. Pandit Gobind remained by the river, watching the sunlight spread. His face looked older and younger at the same time. Years of struggle had etched deep lines into his skin. Now those same lines looked soft, as if a lifetime of burden had washed away in the river. He closed his eyes for a moment. Silent gratitude moved through him, gentle and quiet as the shifting tide.
Asha stood nearby with her daughter. Their fingers were interlocked. The fear she once carried in her heart felt distant, like a shadow fading behind her. Her daughter leaned against her side, resting her head on her shoulder. There was no celebration, no applause, no dramatic outburst. The transformation was not loud. It was steady, like the rising sun. One man stepped forward, dipping his hands into the water. He lifted the river to his face and let it run through his fingers, over his skin. Another followed him, then another. Not symbolic, not ritualistic, simply a gesture of cleansing, quiet and personal. They had not found something new. They had returned to something they had always known. Hearts began to soften, shoulders relaxed, breathing steadied. The world did not feel frightening anymore. It felt open. The river flowed past them, ancient and patient, carrying stories older than memory. The air smelled like morning and possibility. For the first time in a long time, the people felt alive, not hopeful because of promises, not joyful because of spectacle, alive because the silence in their hearts had finally ended. The sun rose higher. A new day had truly begun. The sun rose fully over Varanasi, casting warm light across rooftops, narrow alleyways, and the endless steps that led to the river. The city, known for centuries as a place where souls sought release, felt strangely suspended between two breaths. Not everyone had gone to the river that morning. Many were now waking to the distant echo of what had happened. The shopkeepers opened their doors a little slower. Temple bells rang with less certainty. Conversations hovered in the air like birds unsure of where to land. Rumors traveled faster than footsteps. Some whispered that Pandit Govind had lost his mind. Others claimed they had seen a miracle. A few simply said something sacred had touched the river at dawn. No one agreed, yet everyone felt something shifting beneath the surface of ordinary life. Along the riverbank, the people who had taken their step into faith remained gathered, not out of urgency, but out of reluctance to leave the presence of that moment. The air around them felt different, as if parting from it too soon might mean waking from a dream they did not wish to end. Arjun stood with several young men. Their eyes were still red from tears. Their expressions were quiet but firm. They had no speeches to make, no declarations to force. The truth inside them felt enough. Asha helped her daughter wash her hands in the river. The little girl smiled softly. Her innocence gave the scene a tenderness that felt too fragile to disturb. Govind observed the city across the water. The temples stood tall, unchanged in stone, yet something invisible had shifted. He felt no triumph, only humility. What had taken place was not his doing.
He had simply followed where truth had led him. Footsteps approached. A small crowd had begun to gather at the edge of the riverbank, people who had not been present earlier. Their expressions were tense, questioning, curious. Some held their idols tightly, as if clutching the familiar to defend against whatever had happened here. Their voices were low, murmuring. What have they done? Is it true? Was it betrayal or salvation? The river answered none of them. Govind stepped forward slowly, not to persuade, not to command, but to acknowledge. He looked at them with steady eyes. He said, "No force brought us here," his voice quiet but clear. "No promise of reward, no fear of punishment. Only the search for the one who hears the heart." His words settled into the air, calm and simple.
The onlookers did not respond. Some looked away. Some stared harder. A shift was taking place inside each of them. It was not loud. It was not quick. It was the beginning of an inner storm. The wave that began at the river was moving outward now, not as a shout, not as a rally, as a question. A question that would follow them long after they left the riverbank. A question that could not be ignored once heard. The city was stirring. The world soon would follow. The sun rose slowly over the water, painting the sky with soft brush strokes of gold and pale amber. The riverbanks were quiet now. The chants had faded. The drums had silenced. Only the gentle flow of the Ganges remained, whispering to itself, like it held every secret spoken in the night. Riya stood at the water's edge. Her sari was damp and clung to her skin. Her hands trembled slightly, not from cold, but from everything her heart had just accepted. The river had carried away the statue of the god she once prayed to, and with it, the heavy weight that had lived in her chest for years. Beside her, Amit watched the sunrise too. He did not speak. He did not need to. Some moments were too sacred for words, and he understood this better than anyone. One by one, villagers stepped forward. Some held prayer beads. Some held nothing at all, only the peace that now lived behind their eyes. The imam stood at the front of the group. He looked at them the way a father looks at his children returning home. His eyes glistened, but he did not cry. Strength and tenderness rested together in his face. "Today," he said quietly, "a new journey begins." There were no shouts, no spectacle, no ceremony to be broadcast to the world. Only the sound of hearts opening, like flowers waking in morning light. Riya closed her eyes. She whispered the words again, not because she had to, but because her soul needed to speak them. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah. Her voice was steady now, calm, certain. The others repeated after the imam, each voice weaving into the air, rising above the water and the trees. The Ganges caught the echo and carried it far. Amit smiled, just a simple smile, one that spoke of endless gratitude, one that held no pride, no victory, only love. As the sun climbed higher, the village awoke to a new identity. Not one forced, not one taken, one discovered, one chosen freely. No one knew what would come next. There would be challenges. There would be questions from the outside world. There would be those who did not understand. Yet for the first time in their lives, they were not afraid. They had found something clear, something real, something that felt like home. The river kept flowing. The morning kept unfolding. And the village stepped forward into the dawn that would be remembered for generations. Not a story of conversion, not a story of conflict, a story of hearts finding the truth they had been whispering to themselves all along.